4. Yet, however Dalrymple justified himself intellectually, he had many bad moments in the weeks immediately following his decision. The tremendous pressure of sentiment and inherited ambition kept raising riot with his attitude. He felt morally lonely. The noon after his first venture, he ate in a little lunchroom with Charlie Moore and watched him unspread the paper, waited for a remark about the hold-up of the day before. But either the hold-up was not mentioned, or Charlie wasn't interested. He turned listlessly to the sporting sheet, read Dr. Crane's crop of seasoned bromides, took in an editorial on ambition with his mouth slightly ajar, and then skipped to Mutt and Jeff. Poor Charlie, with his faint aura of evil in his mind that refused to focus, playing a lifeless solitaire with cast-off mischief. Yet Charlie belonged on the other side of the fence. In him he could be stirred up all the flamings and denunciations of righteousness. He would weep at a stage heroine's lost virtue. He could become lofty and contemptuous at the idea of dishonor. On my side, thought Dalrymple, there aren't any resting places. A man who's a strong criminal is after the weak criminals as well, so it's all guerrilla warfare all over here. What will it all do to me? He thought with a persistent weariness. Will it take the color out of life will it take the color out of life with the honor? Will it scatter my courage and dull my mind? Despiritualize me completely? Does it mean eventual barrenness, eventual remorse, failure? With a great surge of anger, he would fling his mind upon the barrier and stand there with the flashing bayonet of his pride. Other men who broke the laws of justice and charity lied to all the world. He, at any rate, would not lie to himself. He was more than Byronic now, not the spiritual rebel, Don Juan, not the philosophical rebel, Faust, but a new psychological rebel of his own century, defying the sentimental a priori forms of his own mind. Happiness was what he wanted, a slowly rising scale of gratifications of the normal appetites, and he had a strong conviction that the materials, if not the inspiration of happiness, could be bought with money. 5. The night came that drew him out upon his second venture, and as he walked the dark street he felt in himself a great resemblance to a cat, a certain supple, swinging litheness. His muscles were rippling smoothly and sleekly under his spare, healthy flesh. He had an absurd desire to bound along the street, to run dodging among trees, to turn cartwheels over soft grass. It was not crisp, but in the air lay a faint suggestion of acerbity, inspirational rather than chilling. The moon is down. I have not heard the clock. He laughed in delight at the line which an early memory had endowed with a hushed, awesome beauty. He passed a man and then another a quarter of a mile afterwards. He was on Fillmore Street now, and it was very dark. He blessed the city council for not having put in new lamp-posts as a recent budget had recommended. Here was the red brick Sterner residence, which marked the beginning of the avenue. Here was the Jordan House, the Eisenhowers, the Dents, the Markhams, the Frasers, the Hawkins, where he had been a guest, the Willoughbys, the Everetts, colonial and ornate, the little cottage where lived the Watts old maids, between imposing fronts of the Macy's and the Cripstacks and the Craigs. Ah, there! He paused, wavered violently. Far up the street was a blot, a man walking, possibly a policeman. After an eternal second, he found himself following the vague, ragged shadow of a lamp-post across the lawn, running bent very low. Then he was standing tense, without breath or need of it, in the shadow of his limestone prey. Interminably he listened. A mile off a cat howled. 100 yards away another took up the hymn in a demonic snarl, and he felt his heart dip and swoon, acting as a shock absorber for his mind. There were other sounds, the faintest fragment of a song far away, strident, gossiping laughter from a back porch, diagonally across the alley, and crickets singing in the patched, patterned, moonlit grass of the yard. Within the house there seemed to lie an ominous silence. He was glad he did not know who lived here. His slight shiver hardened to steel. The steel softened, and his nerves became pliable as leather. Gripping his hands, he gratefully found them supple, and taking out knife and pliers, he went to work on the screen. So sure he was that he was unobserved that, from the dining room where in a minute he found himself, he leaned out and carefully pulled the screen up into position, balancing it so it would neither fall by chance nor be a serious obstacle to a sudden exit. Then he put the open knife in his coat pocket, took out his pocket flash, and tiptoed around the room. There was nothing here he could use. The dining room had never been included in his plans for the town, was too small to permit disposing of silver. As a matter of fact, his palms were of the vaguest. He had found that with a mind like his, lucrative in intelligence, intuition, and lightning decision, it was best to have but the skeleton of a campaign. The machine gun episode had taught him that, and he was afraid that a method preconceived would give him 2 points of view in a crisis, and two points of view meant wavering. He stumbled slightly on a chair, held his breath, listened, went on, found the hall, found the stairs, started up, the 7th stair creaking at his step, the 9th, the 14th. He was counting them automatically. At the 3rd creak he paused again for over a minute, and in that minute he felt more alone than he had ever felt before. Between the lines on patrol, even when alone, he had behind him the moral support of 500 million people. Now he was alone, pitted against that same moral pressure, a bandit. He had never felt this fear, yet he had never felt this exaltation. The stairs came to an end. A doorway approached. He went in and listened to regular breathing. His feet were economical of step, and his body swayed sometimes at stretching as he felt over the bureau, pocketed all articles which held promise. He could not have enumerated them 10 seconds afterwards. He felt on a chair for possible trousers, found soft garments, women's lingerie. The corners of his mouth smiled mechanically. Another room, the same breathing, enlivened by one ghastly snort that sent his heart again on its tour of his breast. Round objects, watch, chain, roll of bills, stick pins, 2 rings. He remembered that he had got rings from the other bureau. He started out, winced as a faint glow flashed in front of him, facing him. God! It was a glow of his own wristwatch on his outstretched arm. Down the stairs, he skipped 2 crumbling steps, but found another. He was all right now, practically safe. As he neared the bottom, he felt a slight boredom. He reached the dining room, considered the silver, again decided against it. Back in his room at the boarding house, he examined the additions to his personal property. $65 in bills, a platinum ring with 3 medium diamonds, worth probably about $700. Diamonds were going up. A cheap gold-plated ring with the initials OS and the date inside, 03, probably a class ring from school, worth a few dollars, unsaleable. A red cloth case containing a set of false teeth, a silver watch, a gold chain worth more than the watch, an empty ring box, a little ivory Chinese god, probably a desk ornament, $1.62 in small change. He put the money under his pillow and the other things in the toe of an infantry boot, stuffed a sock in on top of them. Then for 2 hours his mind raced like a high-powered engine here and there through his life, past and future, through fear and laughter. With a vague, inopportune wish that he were married, he fell in a deep sleep about 5:30.